For WXXI, this is Connections, filling in for Evan Dawson. I'm Gino Finelli. Well, it is that time of year. The cold weather is kicking in. The wind is whipping around the WXXI studio as I speak. And if you're like me, the clutter in your house is starting to build up. And when we talk about recycling, it's often just bottles, cans, and boxes. But in a world where it seems like everything has a battery nowadays, and those things with a battery are becoming increasingly disposable, figuring out what exactly to do with all of our deceased gadgets, odds and ends, is becoming increasingly daunting. It's time to have a bit of a conversation about how to recycle and how to do it right. So to do that, I'm here with Mike Garland, Director of the Monroe County Department of Environmental Services. Mike, thanks for being here.
Gino, thank you.
And Nicole Fornoff, Waste Diversion and Education Coordinator for the Monroe County Department of Environmental Services. Nicole, thanks for being here.
Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
So to start, I want you to help us navigate it. How has recycling changed over time? I think it's a bit twofold. There's now new ways for things to be recycled, but there's also, I think, more than ever, more types of waste produced by the average household. There's all kinds of different things that people have that they're throwing away that maybe 15, 20 years ago, like you kept that for a little bit longer, or you just didn't have that kind of thing in your house. So I think it's complicated for the average person to navigate what exactly you do with a lot of this stuff. So I want you both to walk me through it. What can be recycled, what can't be recycled, and how do you go about recycling the right way?
Well, that's a great question, Gino, and thank you for that. And recycling is dynamic, and it's not static. It's evolved over time. Began in the 1990s in New York State as really an anti-litter campaign. And now it's grown dramatically. It changes frequently. In fact, we had a big announcement made by the county executive last week, relative to materials that we can now accept at the recycling center. So we're always looking for new materials that we can accept, whether it's at the curb through the recycling center or at the Eco Park on Avion Drive that we operate with WM. But our job is to really make it easier for residents to recycle and to recycle right. So we have a lot of information available online at monroecounty.gov/recycling that can educate residents about how to recycle right. But as I mentioned, on the 19th, County Executive Bello announced that we can now accept plastic and paper to-go cups, both hot and cold, without straws or lids, and that's a big expansion of our program. We've got some of the examples here on the table. While they don't look very voluminous, it's very impactful to our program.
Nicole, anything you want to add to there? Like, I think that for the average person, some of this stuff can be kind of confusing. Mm-hmm. And how do you make it accessible? How do you make recycling accessible to the average person?
Sure. I think that's a great question, and it's something we really strive to do in all of our education materials and outreach efforts, is to make things simple, clear, and consistent. And it does get a little tricky because there's just so many different types of materials and packaging out there. It's hard to come up with these broad terms to identify and define all of them, but we've worked really hard to do that, and our website will really get into the nitty-gritty of things, as will our Alexa tool. You can just open or tell Alexa to open the Monroe County Recycling Skill, and you can ask her if something is recyclable in Monroe County, and she'll let you know if it is curbside or if it's accepted at the Eco Park or if it should go in the trash. But in general, we take paper materials, so paper, office paper, cardboard, pizza boxes. Plastic, we recycle by shape, so that would be bottles, jars, jugs, tubs, and now to-go cups. Metal, we take aluminum foil and cans, and glass, we take bottles and jars. So those are the broad groups of materials that we accept for curbside recycling.
What can't you take?
Well, we've developed a tool that Nicole developed recently, and I'll have her explain a little bit more, but we call it Red Light, Green Light, Recycle Right. And your question's an excellent one, because people wish cycle. They want things to be recyclable. And we want to educate folks to immediately identify if something is not recyclable. So this red light, yellow light, green light tool that we've developed can help educate residents and inform them quickly, right? So they don't have to dig too far to determine what can't be recyclable. But that's why we developed the Eco Park with WM, formerly known as Waste Management, because a lot of materials you can't recycle at the curb, they are recoverable, they are recyclable, they can have a new life, and that's why we developed the Eco Park for residents to bring hard to dispose of but recoverable and recyclable materials.
Yeah. And then to talk a little bit more about the things that we don't want, those would fall under our red light category of items, things that we certainly don't want to see in your curbside recycling bin or even your trash bin at home. That would be vapes or any device really that contains a lithium ion battery or a rechargeable battery. Those can be really big sources of fire hazards for our facilities, for trucks, even at your home. So we certainly want to make sure that those get to the right place, which can be brought back to big box stores like Staples, Best Buy, electronics recyclers, or the Eco Park. Some other things we definitely don't want in your bin are propane tanks, electronics, and sharps. Those are all things that can cause harm to the employees at the recycling center who do a lot of hand sorting. I think that's one misconception that people might have is that everything is very mechanized and robotic. And we do have that at the recycling center, but there are people that are hand sorting some materials. And so we don't want these things to pose a danger to them, especially sharps. So sharps, we want to make sure that we bring those to the Eco Park or other facilities like hospitals and nursing homes that take those. Make sure they get to a safe outlet.
Sharps as in syringes, needles,
Yes.
that kind of thing.
Yep,
Okay, just
exactly.
to clarify.
Yeah.
Before we went on, we were kind of talking about glass, and I was doing a little research before we came in here, and there's estimates from around the country that about 2/3 of all glass products end up in a landfill eventually. That's not the case here anymore. And Mike, I kind of want you to explain that a little bit of how does an end market for glass actually work, and what happens to when you are recycling glass here? Where does it end up? And glass is one of those things it's inert, it's infinitely recyclable. It doesn't really lose quality from its recycling. So fill me in on that. What are we doing with our glass now?
Well, thank you for that question. And there are really two types of glass in the recycling world. There's bottle bill glass, and there is MRF glass. And MRF is a materials recovery facility, acronym for that. So we look at those two different categories. Bottle bill glass are glass bottles that have a redemption on them. And if you bring them back to Redemption Center, they can be infinitely recycled. They're usually sorted by color, and there's a number of different glass jars and bottles or glass bottles that fall within the bottle bill, and those can be, beer, water, soft drinks, and alcoholic seltzers. Those fall within the bottle bill itself. So again, that's the cleanest way to manage glass, and we understand about 79% of those bottles that fall within the bottle bill are recovered and recycled, which is a good statistic in New York State. MRF glass is a little bit different. MRF glass, again, are glass products, that are containers, jars, and jugs that are collected at the curb, and they're mixed with the other recyclable materials, right? So it's single stream. They're commingled. Generally, they're broken, and they're crushed often. And for a long time, there was not an end market for MRF glass. It was too dirty, and it had a lot of contaminants in them from different sources. But fortunately, WM, who is our partner that operates the recycling center, installed new processing equipment for glass. And we're proud to say that all glass that has been collected at our recycling center on Lee and Emerson Road in 2025 is being recycled. And there's a company in Canada that WM is partnering with that is processing that glass, and it's being utilized for construction products, whether it's fiberglass, asphalt, or concrete. So we're really happy about that. It's been a long time since we've been able to recycle glass. Up until 2025, we were using it at the Mill Street landfill and other local landfills as alternative daily cover.
So before I go any further, I have 844-295-TALK, 844-295-8255. If you have questions about what you can recycle and stuff, we want to take your calls. I'm sure there's a lot of people with a lot of curiosity about, how this stuff works. And on that note, I want to talk about like a really common phrase that's used that I think on its surface seems really simple to understand, but going a little bit of depth, like, okay, how does a person actually integrate it into their life? It's reduce, reuse, recycle. It is a simple concept, but how can the average person, like, what little changes can you make to your life and the way you do things to kind of live by that code of reducing how much you consume, and reusing some things, and then recycling things when you can't really reuse them anymore? Again, simple concept, hard to implement, I think. So what are some ideas? What are some thoughts you have there of how we can actually do that as people?
Well, you can add a fourth R, and that would be to regift.
Oh, okay.
You know,
okay.
this time of year, why not, right? We get a few presents laying around that maybe could be eligible for regifting, but I'll turn that over to Nicole. I think she's got some probably good ideas on what people can do around their home to make it simpler.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up because really that idea follows the waste hierarchy, which tells us that we should be starting with waste reduction. That really has the biggest environmental benefit. Rather than running to recycle waste first, we want to reduce it. So waste reduction, we can make some really simple changes in our life. We can switch to reusable water bottles, reusable coffee mugs rather than the single-use plastic water bottle or even your to-go cups. We can compost at home. We can reduce food waste at home. Just make sure that we're actually eating the food that we purchase, not letting it go to waste, being creative with it, coming up with new recipes to utilize leftovers and freezing food so we can use it another time. When it comes to clothing, making sure that we're donating old clothes or selling them. We definitely don't want to see those materials in the waste stream. That's one way we can definitely cut down on waste as well. So there are a lot of small changes that people can make in their daily lives, but I think it just starts with, even before you purchase something, thinking about how long you're going to use it, where it's going to end up at the end of its life, and if there's another alternative out there that might be more sustainable, longer lasting, better quality.
I put everything in mason jars. I use mason jars for everything.
That's awesome.
And then I'll give some people stuff in mason jars, and then a couple weeks later I'll ask them, "Where's my mason jar?" Like, I threw it out. Like, you threw out a mason jar.
Right.
What a crazy thing to do.
Right.
Right?
Very resourceful.
It's a heartbreaking thing to hear.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, these, I'm thinking my own life. These are like little things that I've changed instead of buying plastic containers that I would end up throwing away really quickly. A mason jar you reuse over and over and over. It's really never going to go bad, and that's good.
Yeah,
that's a good thing.
Glass jars are a great item to reuse,
and it's a cool aesthetic too. Paper and plastic cups are now recyclable, and first of all, why was this a problem to begin with, that it was hard to recycle these? Let's start from there.
Mm-hmm.
And now what do we do with them? What actually is done with them at the end of the day?
Well, a great question, too, in terms of why. Why has it been an issue for so long? We've discussed this many times on this show. I know residents are anxious to be able to recycle those cups. They want to do the right thing. But it really comes down to three criteria when we look at recycling. Sortation, reprocessing, and end markets. So in terms of sortation, will the package be properly and consistently sorted at our recycling center? And the answer now is yes. We've got new technology that WM installed, optical technology that uses pneumatics, that we can actually separate this material so that it doesn't contaminate other valuable loads and items that are being recycled, like paper and cardboard and other fiber products. Reprocessing. The second criteria, will the material be successfully reprocessed by reclaimers, like paper mills and plastic reprocessors, into new products? And then thirdly, is there an end market for it? Can it be used for new materials? And the answer is yes now for all three. So that's why we were able to work in partnership with WM to be able to accept these materials that are only continuing to increase in the community in terms of their usage.
What do you do with a paper cup? What can it be repurposed into? What's the second life for a paper cup?
So paper cups will ultimately be sent with our mixed paper stream at our recycling center, and they can be made into a number of items. They can be made into container board, even new paper cups, but some type of recycled paper product. Tissue, paper towel, that's another item commonly used.
Right, because newspaper and office paper has been on the decrease, right? So the volume of that material has gone down, but the demand is high for tissue mills that are making, the paper towels, napkins, what have you. They need that material, and those cups have white paper fiberboard in it that's highly valuable, so they can extract that and make it into new products.
A question that came up in the newsroom was pizza boxes. I think there has been mixed guidance over the year on those. Are they recyclable now?
Double thumbs up. Yep, just, eat the pizza, take it out, maybe remove the cheese and whatnot, whatever's left over. But if it's greasy, that's A-okay, we'll take it.
Gotcha.
And you're right, that is a change. We historically had said just include the clean part of the pizza box. They actually did a study, WestRock, who is a paper mill, they did a study on how much grease can actually be part of the pizza box and not impede the recycling process. And they found that the average pizza box, normal amount of grease, not an issue for recycling. So that's a change for us. We're able to expand and say, we'll take the whole pizza box. The paper mills can handle a normal amount of grease.
It does seem like there's like this broadening scope of things that like maybe we didn't think about before, but now can be used for something else. And are there any others that jump to mind that like, before it was just, that goes in the landfill that now isn't necessarily the case?
Well, a lot of metal products, certainly. We accept old pans, aluminum foil in certain sizes. Most people would normally throw that out and not know what to do with it. We can accept that at the curb. Again, that's where the EcoPark comes in because we have such a wide diversity of materials that we accept. Bulky plastics, electronics, even the vape devices we accept there as well too, so that they're properly managed. They're converted, they're incinerated actually, and then the metals are extracted, so we get some value out of it. But energy is produced from the disposal of vapes. But the EcoPark is a very unique answer to really your question that there's a lot we can do at the curb, but there's a lot more we can do at the EcoPark as well too that would have otherwise ended up in a landfill.
Why are lithium-ion batteries in particular such a concern? We kind of touched on this, but this is like the one that always jumps out as like this needs to be recycled in a certain way. And what environmental risk do they pose?
The primary risk is fire hazard. And County Executive Bello announced in November a new hazmat vehicle that was purchased by the Fire Bureau, really for responding to obviously hazmat situations, but the increase in lithium-ion battery fires. We've seen a number of incidents, particularly in the New York City area, where there's loss of life. There's significant fires because of the mishandling of lithium-ion batteries. They can be damaged, and that's what can cause them to go into thermal runaway, and the risk is high. Whether it's a small device, right? Whether it's a vape, a phone, or an e-scooter. A lot of batteries now are used for e-mobility devices and things like that, and people bring them into homes. They bring them to elevators and things like that. And if they're in a thermal runaway, it's a type of fire that's very difficult to control.
So I am the kind of person that accumulates a lot of clothing over the year, and I try to downsize. I like to say every year, but that doesn't really happen. It's usually like every 3 years. But I like to see that stuff, even if it's in rough shape, find some kind of other life. And I want to get an idea there. I think this is a time of year where people are trying to get rid of clothing. They probably just got new stuff in the holidays, and now they're trying to downsize a little bit. Where is the best place to take stuff? I mean, if it's in decent shape, where can it get a second life? And if it's in tatters, what can that be? Like, what second life can that clothing have?
So any of the textile donation centers in our community, whether that's Savers, Goodwill, who is our partner at the EcoPark for textiles, they will take clothing as long as it's clean, dry, and odorless. So it's okay if it's worn and torn. It doesn't have to be in perfect condition. They will do sorting there and determine what they can resell in the store and what they will use for textile recycling. So they actually have their own commodities market for textiles. So they're able to bail out textiles and send those to a secondary processor and make them into rags. Different types of materials in vehicles are actually made from old textiles. So there's a lot of textile recycling done through Goodwill and other partners like that.
And on our website, monroecounty.gov/EcoPark, residents can search where there are alternate locations other than the EcoPark. We don't try to steer residents to the EcoPark solely. We, in fact, want people to go to locations that are convenient for them. And the locations that Nicole mentioned would show up on a search through our search tool on the EcoPark website.
So I think for a lot of people, it's almost a thing where there might be an intent to recycle. There might be that belief there that, like, I want to do this, but frankly, I think a lot of people do see it as a hassle still. Like, it's still hard to do. And I think what you're describing is that's not necessarily the case. Like, it is more accessible now than ever. But how do you quell the concerns of people like that? That's like, oh, I want to do it, but I don't want to make the effort.
I get that.
How do you convince them to make the effort?
Well, that's a great question. And again, that's part of our mission, to make it easier for folks and inspire them to want to recycle right. We know there's a lot of folks in the community who we'd categorize as wish cyclers. They want something to be recyclable. It just isn't. But our job is to make it easier for folks. That's why we developed the Alexa app, or Alexa skill, I should say. And that Alexa skill, if you own an Alexa smart speaker or you've downloaded the Alexa app, both free of charge on your phone, we've developed a specific skill that will allow residents to ask questions. Again, hopefully make it simpler for folks to recycle and get answers more quickly. Because we have busy schedules and they don't have a lot of time, especially on garbage night, trying to determine is something recyclable or not. We do have magnets that people can request online. We know there's often a lot of marital discussions and maybe arguments around what can and can't be recycled. We'd like to be a resource where those questions could be answered. So again, it is a bit of a hassle. For folks, we understand that, to stay on top of all of what can and can't be recycled. But again, our job is to make it easier. We're in the process of developing a recycling app that will rely on AI technology to make it, again, easier. So we want multiple sources of information, not just one source where they can get information on what they can and can't recycle.
So plastic bags aren't as common now as far as grocery stores go. But, I mean, the amount of plastic that is in virtually any product that you buy nowadays is still pretty high. How much of that can be recycled? How much of what are the lines of something that is like, yeah, there's nothing we can really do with this, and yeah, this can be used for something else. I think packaging is a big, like a massive source of just waste, and how much of it can actually go into Second Life.
So I do know that of all the plastics that exist, about 40% of them are packaging. The other 60% are durable goods. So whether that's clothing that contains polyester fiber, furniture, sporting goods, things that we don't ever want to see in our recycling center. So diapers, plastic trash bags, there are things that are made out of plastic that we hope will never come to our recycling center. Of the 40% that come in, I don't know off the top of my head what percentage of those are recyclable. I do know in terms of packaging, in New York State, 76% of curbside recycling programs are able to capture 76% of packaging items, but only 30% are being recycled. So we do have systems in place to be able to effectively capture and reprocess these basic materials. So that's another thing I would say to folks, just keep it simple. If you just recycle paper, plastic bottles, and metal cans, you're going to be covering most of the bases. And if we want to meet with people where they're at, so if you want to get more into the details and the nitty gritty, we have those resources available. But if not, keep it simple and you'll be recycling most of those packaging items that are out there.
And if I could add to that too, right here in our own backyard, there's the Remade Institute, led by Dr. Nabil Nasser, located at RIT. And again, they're looking at remanufacturing. So all those plastics you talked about, Gino, that are beyond just the consumer plastics that you're buying at the grocery store or, wherever you may buy those. A lot of plastics are in our everyday life. And the focus really is on a circular economy where, there's a system where materials never become waste, and nature itself is regenerated. So that's really the goal, right? All plastics, whether it's curbside, whether it's Eco Park, whether it's what you're buying in an appliance, that those plastics and those materials in some way enter into a circular economy, and they don't end up as waste.
So we've gotten a couple off-air questions. One of them is a definitive answer on if the containers that strawberries come in can be recycled.
The answer to that is still no. And we can dig into that because we have found that PET plastic, which is number one, identified as the number one with a triangle on it, if you look at the bottom of a container, Very commonly used for plastic bottles and jars, also used for the berry containers. But those two products are very different, both chemically and physically, from each other due to the process that they're made from. So PET plastic bottles and jars are created using the blow mold process. So they basically take a plastic preform and they force high pressure, hot air into it, kind of like glass blowing. And that's how they make that bottle or jar. And that plastic requires a higher grade of plastic because of the contents of the item. So a lot of carbonated sodas will be in jars, in bottles. A lot of jars will be vacuum sealed. So if we think about a peanut butter jar or a nut jar, a lot of times you have to pull that seal off. So they need to be made of higher quality plastic to be able to withstand either the contents inside or the process that's used to create them, versus thermoform plastic, which is the process used to create number one PET plastic berry containers. And thermoforming is where they take a thin sheet of plastic, heat it, and form it over a shape. So they would make the clamshell, they would stamp out a bunch of clamshells at the same time. That they're able to use a much lower grade plastic for that because it doesn't need to hold up. It just needs to hold your berries. It doesn't need to hold a carbonated soda or anything else. So it's a much lower quality plastic. And the issue really lies on the reclamation side. When we send out a bale of PET plastic to our plastic reclaimers, that low quality thermoform plastic will actually downgrade and reduce the quality of the entire bale to the point where they are not able to use that plastic to make it into bottles again. So it really has to do with the reprocessors, the plastic reprocessors. Right now, there's just not a viable end market for thermoform plastic. So we're still at the point where those can't go into your curbside bin, but we are definitely keeping our eye on things, and we continually work with WM to see, as markets advance, as economics change, we're always looking to expand when there's real and viable markets out there.
Another question that kind of came in was, the cups are recyclable. Are the lids recyclable too?
Yes, they are. Yep. Put the lids back on. So lids in general on recyclables across the board, we want the lids on or not at all. You can't have a loose lid that will fall through the sorting process and just end up as contamination. But if you put the lids back on, we're able to recapture them that way.
And sleeves can remain on, hot beverage, but no straws, no stirs.
And plastic straws still
no go.
No go?
Yeah.
Why's that?
Size is one issue, and the material itself.
Yeah, anything under 2 inches is going to fall through the sorting system, and it's going to end up as contaminant. It will end up in our glass pile is where it ends up. So it'll be sorted out as a contaminant.
I think that as we're having this conversation, we did kind of touch on this before, but I'm really thinking of just how much waste we produce in our day-to-day life. It's kind of amazing. Like, we buy so many things that are designed to be thrown away. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on how do you not do that as much? I mean, it's great to recycle. It's great to get things back into circulation. But I think the bigger thing is, how do you avoid having the thing itself that you need to recycle, that you need to needs to become waste at some point? How do you do that?
Well, government can't do it alone. I think we do a great job here in Monroe County. I think we have one of the best programs in the state, if not the country. We're always on the leading edge in terms of what we can and can't recycle, and we do it in a very responsible way in terms of protecting the environment and making sure that we have an economical program. But I think the future really lies in the extended producer responsibility to be able to take those materials back. Again, going back to the circular economy and the great work that the Remade Institute is doing with large manufacturers about coming up with sustainable manufacturing processes. So it's not left to the individual to have the entire burden of determining if something is recyclable and then the obligation to make sure it's properly recycled, relying on the producers. And that the bottle bill is a great example of that already. Paint recycling is another great example. Electronics, pharmaceuticals. It's really the future, I think, of recyclability and recovery of materials in our community.
I'm going to take a call from Rachel in Rochester, who has a question. Hi, Rachel.
Hi. I had a question about Tetra Packs. Like, almond milk comes in. My partner and I always fight about whether we should recycle those or not.
Yes. So we can absolutely accept Tetra Pak. Any type of cartons we're able to accept in Monroe County, whether they're shelf stable or refrigerated. We can process all cartons.
And if Rachel, if you and your partner would like a magnet for your refrigerator, feel free to go to monroecounty.gov/recycling, and you'll have the opportunity to request a magnet. We'll be happy to send it to you.
All right, we're going to take our first break of the hour. We're still talking about recycling when we come back. 844-295-TALK, 844-295-8255, or 585-263-9994. Call in, have questions about what you can do to reduce your impact on this wonderful environment we live in. So we're going to take our first break of the hour. All right, we are back on Connections. We are talking about recycling. I am Gino Finelli, filling in with Evan Dawson, for Evan Dawson. If you have questions about recycling and what you can do in Monroe County to recycle, you can call 844-295-TALK, 844-295-8255, 585-263-9994, or you can email us at connections@wxxi.org. A question that we got as we were going into the break was, again, about produce containers. This time salad tubs. Can they be recycled?
So that would also be qualify as a thermoform PET plastic, so that would not be acceptable. So when we're thinking about plastics, shape is still the best guideline to identify if it's recyclable curbside. Bottles, jars, jugs, tubs, and to-go cups. So any type of produce, berry, bakery containers, those are all thermoform plastics, and right now there's not a viable market for them.
Is there anything that we are kind of like on the cusp of, that can't be recycled right now, but it's like you guys are really trying to this is something that's building up in landfills and we would like to find a way to, recirculate them. Does anything come to mind there? Because I feel like we're talking about all these things that have changed over the years in what can be recycled. What are the next frontiers there of what we can be getting to?
How I'd respond to that, Gino, would be certainly glass. That's going to evolve. We want to see glass, not just here in Monroe County, but across New York State, the country, to be able to be recycled. That's MRF glass, right? The future, no doubt, is on food waste organics. That's material that very often is ending up in the landfill or out at our water resource recovery facilities down garbage disposal. So obviously there's work underway now. We've had pilot programs underway right now to minimize and be able to recover food waste organics. It goes beyond just food waste organics. There's a number of categories that we're studying through an organics management plan right now, looking at organic waste from industrial, institutional, commercial, as well as residential sources.
It's a thing that I think about a lot is, every person has to play their part, right? Now, granted, when you look at the grand scheme of the world and the industrial manufacturing that's happening everywhere, it's like how much really impact could a person have on their own? And I think they can, but yeah, I'd like to hear your thoughts on that. How much impact can a person have by changing their habits and making sure that what they're doing and the kind of waste they develop is, smaller and they is more reserved and is more focused on sustainability rather than just, I bought it, I used it once, and I'm throwing it away. Well, philosophical question there.
Yeah, it certainly is. And I think, as we often say, the younger generation, which is whom Nicole and her team reach out to, and because they're the ones who are generally the most motivated, most interested in recycling right. So I think we've got a bright future in terms of dedicated environmental stewards with younger folks. But the individual, going back to the 60s and 70s and 80s, before recycling became law, we saw what a lack of individual commitment was to properly managing trash, and it becomes a litter issue for sure and a public health issue as well. So the individual can no doubt make the biggest difference, and that's where it really needs to start. At home, in school, those are the places where I think we can inspire current and future generations. I know my mom enjoys the Alexa app, and that's her go-to source of what can and can't be recycled unless she can't get a hold of me. So I think you have every age group is really interested in doing the right thing. It certainly comes up at a lot of the family parties and dinners about what can and can't be recycled. And so we're hopeful.
And I think small changes add up. So every person in Monroe County, when they start recycling their cups, it's going to make a difference. And our recycling center, we process 22 tons an hour of material. And visually, it's hard to conceptualize that, but we're diverting a lot of material from the landfill. And everything we recycle, we're conserving natural resources, we're saving that space in the landfill, and really making a better choice for the environment. So everything adds up and makes a difference.
So I'm going to take a call from Eric in Rochester. Hey, Eric, how you doing?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on today.
Of course.
I have two questions. The first one I don't expect you to answer, and it's a philosophical one or a relationship one. Why are there so many discussions between spouses about what is recyclable and what is not, and how does that break down? That's a fascinating question for me, but I don't expect you'll have the answer for it. So there's that one. The actual question for recycling is for example, do-it-yourself furniture or some assembly-required furniture. Obviously, there's the outer cardboard box, which you've talked about in terms of the recyclability of that. There's obviously the styrofoam that protects the stuff. But there's this third material in the box, besides the plastic holding screws and things. That's this wispy plastic kind of material, but it's sort of foamish. And it doesn't quite qualify as styrofoam. It doesn't also qualify as paper. Is that recyclable?
Thanks, Eric.
That would not be recyclable. I would imagine that's a type of polystyrene, expanded polystyrene, but it's not a block foam. So at the Eco Park, we accept block white packing foam. That is the only type of styrofoam we can take there. I think I know what Eric's talking about, that really lightweight packing kind of foam, and that would have to go in the trash if you can't find a reuse option for that.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know exactly what he's talking about, too. I hate that stuff. It gets everywhere, and it doesn't. It takes up a lot of space, too.
It's pretty nasty stuff. And as Nicole pointed out, too, we do take block packing foam at the Eco Park, so we're happy to receive that. Not too many communities do. Another product, if I could just add on to Eric's question, too, is you get these long paper.
Packing paper?
Packing paper, that's correct. Thank you. And a lot of, say, Amazon packages, very, very long, right? You need to trim that down because it'll get hung up in the processing equipment at the recycling center.
I'm going to take another call from Robin in Canandaigua. Hi, Robin.
Hi there. My question is, can we recycle bubble wrap, and if so, exactly how? And do I need to remove any packing tapes that came on it?
So bubble wrap can be recycled through plastic bag and film collection sites, which are usually in the front of every grocery store. So it would not be a curbside program. That's definitely something we don't want in your bin curbside. And I know Ontario County wouldn't want that either. But in the retailers that take back plastic bag and film, you could bring the bubble wrap. And if you can remove the tape, great. If not, that's okay.
Just have fun popping the bubbles, I guess.
I feel like it's interesting. Like every question that comes in is just a new version of, can we recycle this? Can we recycle that? And I really appreciate that, because I think people are thinking about all these little things that you come across in your day-to-day life, and can that be recycled? And I don't know most of the time.
But it's that enthusiasm and that level of curiosity that's made our recycling program very, very successful since the 90s. We couldn't do it without the dedicated environmental stewardship of our community, and I mean that. We've got a very robust recycling program, and it's that curiosity, that interest, even at times wish cycling, that's really led to a great program.
I think that it's showing that people do care, and it's more that they have a hard time navigating it. I think that's been the kind of like the takeaway that I've had a lot of this, and I think that it is convenient the county's doing this. You can have magnets. You can just look at a picture and say, can I recycle this? I'm holding it in my hand, and there's a picture of it that says I can or can't.
Well, that's right. And I'd like to give a shout out to Chris Lyons, who's just an exceptional nationally recognized graphic artist who's helped us develop a huge inventory, I think over 200 now, maybe 250 of these very exquisite images that we use for public education. And so, Chris is based here locally. Tony Harkin, who helped develop our Alexa app, based here locally. So we're using a lot of local skills and talents and services to be able to develop I think, a very robust public education campaign.
It's got another question here. What about the big pieces of packing tape on the outside of cardboard boxes? What if you cannot get that off? Do you still recycle that box?
Yes, that's fine. Some of the Amazon tape now or different companies is actually the paper tape, so that's not a problem. If you can pull off the tape, great. If not, they still want your cardboard box.
Great. I think, what about a lot of, I'm thinking of like food packaging, bags mainly, like not produce plastic bags, but like things that like, I'm thinking of bags of croutons, potato chips, stuff like that. What do you do with that stuff? Can that be recycled?
That goes in the trash.
Goes in the trash?
Yeah.
Okay.
Usually that's a multi-layer. Sometimes it has like a foil and a plastic layer, and it's difficult to separate that, so that would be trash.
I have another call from Mark in Pittsburgh. Hi, Mark.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
You might have already answered this, but plain white styrofoam, like, the stuff that insulated things come in. I don't know if it can be recycled. If it can, great. If it can't, how is it processed in the trash? I mean, it takes up so much volume, and it breaks apart, gets in the water supply, streams and fish and all that.
Thank you for that question, Mark. Yes, as we talked about earlier, that we do accept black packing foam. Trade name is Styrofoam at the Eco Park, but again, it has to have tape removed, no markings on it. It's got to be white. We densify that from about 60 to 1 to 60 ratio, and we really consolidate that, and we're able to market that material for manufacturers looking for a very lightweight product. So the good news is we have an outlet for that packing styrofoam, but what we caution residents not to do is to wish cycle egg cartons, styrofoam cups, other types of to-go products that might be manufactured out of foam or extruded polystyrene.
This time of year, I kind of wanted to save this to the end, but trees, Christmas trees, or any other kind of tree that you're cutting down. But I think this time of year, yeah, it's obviously Christmas trees. What does tree cycling look like, and where can people take stuff, and what can they be done? What can be done with them once you surrender your tree?
You want to go for that?
Sure. So trees can either be picked up curbside by municipalities. Many of them pick up trees curbside, and ultimately they mulch them. They're able to reuse that material in landscaping. There's also a number of municipalities that have drop-off locations. We will also accept them at the Eco Park, where we will do the same, mulch them. And for artificial trees, we will take those at the Eco Park as well. Whether or not they have electronics, we're able to recycle them through the Eco Park. So a lot of good outlets to keep those materials out of the landfill and reuse and recycle your Christmas trees.
And there's more information online at monroecounty.gov/DES-environmental recycling. It gives all the locations and the services provided by the city and other municipalities.
So I want to leave on a kind of a question here that is philosophical again. I mean, as we're having this conversation, there's two thoughts in my head. There's two versions of me. One that knows that, it's good to be sustainable. It's good to try to make sure you have the least impact you can on the world. And doing this is the way to do it, to try to find a way to make sure that you're not creating anything that's going into a landfill, or at least the smallest amount you possibly can. That is how I, as an individual, have the least impact. There's the other side of me that's just like, the polar ice caps are melting. The world is on fire. Who cares? How do you respond to that as part of me? How do you convince someone that's like, why does this even matter, to believe that it does matter, that we try to make the less of the impact as you possibly can?
Well, again, I look at the success of our program. Folks want to do the right thing. We've got a program that's both environmentally viable, it's also economically viable. So those are two good motivating reasons to be sustainable and to recycle. I think everyone, we don't want folks to give up hope, right? We know it can be a little bit daunting at times to be able to manage and navigate what can and can't be recycled, but at the end, we're demonstrating results. This is material that would either be contaminating our environment or be filling up our landfills faster. And I think in Monroe County, we set a very, very high standard. And if other communities in the state and the country and the world follow that standard, we'll be in a better place.
Nicole, anything to add to that?
Oh, I think that was really well said, Mike. I think that we have a lot to be proud of in Monroe County. We have about a 40% diversion rate, so we are diverting quite a bit of materials from the landfill, giving them a better use. Our yard waste recycling rate is even higher. We divert about 80% of organic yard waste material in the county. So that's really in large part thanks to the municipalities that are doing curbside leaf collection, picking up Christmas trees, managing that material, and some private organizations and companies as well. So I think that's something to be really proud of. We've made some really great strides, and I think the future, we're just going to keep moving forward and making a big impact.
What do you think is important to get to next? Is there anything still that needs to be done, that there's still a step to get there?
I think that's really organics right now is our focus now, and will be in our next planning cycle for our local solid waste management plan, and then focusing on a circular economy, in working with other partners in our community to achieve that.
Can you just define circular economy for me?
Well, it's circular economy is a way in which things are manufactured and there isn't waste, right? And that nature in itself is regenerated. So the materials that you're using are either minimized or they're manufactured in a way that they can be continuously reused and that they don't end up in waste. And again, nature itself is regenerated. That's probably the simplest definition I can offer.
Yeah, I think that's great. It's a nice concept.
It is, and great work being done by the Remade Institute again here locally to achieve that. And there's a lot of high-level corporate commitment to researching and advancing that as well.
And yeah, we are always on kind of this teeter-totter of you create things that reduce waste, and then something else comes along that creates more waste. New, different kinds of waste, all different kinds of things that we had never predicted before that are now constantly in circulation. So it is a constant push and pull, right?
No doubt.
Yeah,
it really is.
And such is the nature of living in a consumerist society.
That's a fact.
Yeah, and I think that it's clear here that there is just so much that can be done, and it's just a matter of that little push to get people going in that right direction. And I think we're closing in on that, right?
I think so. Yeah, we're making great strides. And again, I point to the Eco Park. It's a great collaboration with WM and Monroe County. It's a unique service that I don't think exists at this level anywhere in the country. And
Eco Park can take tech waste, batteries, lithium ion. They can take pretty much everything.
Absolutely. Good information online, monroecounty.gov/EcoPark. It's open Wednesdays from 1 to 6:30 and Saturday from 7:30 to 1 o'clock. More information online.
Awesome. And anything we missed here? Like, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground and we've covered every little incremental thing that can be recycled and can't be recycled. But anything in your heads that you want to get out there before in our last 2 minutes before we are off the air?
I would say if folks could focus on reducing and reusing, that would be the greatest takeaway for me. Recycling is wonderful. We're making a really big impact in our community through that, but to start with reducing first. So whether that's avoiding buying packaging that's not recyclable, maybe going direct to farmers markets or CSAs so you can avoid some of that non-recyclable food packaging, or opting for reusable or recyclable alternatives. So, plastic egg carton is not something we take right now for recycling, but a paper egg carton is. So, just being aware of what is and isn't recyclable. And then you could go one step further if you want. You could contact manufacturers of products and let them know you want to see their products made in recyclable packaging, or for them to use less packaging. And that's something that can also make an impact.
Yeah, I feel like there is this kind of mindset that a lot of the time we have where we buy something with the thought there that I'm going to replace this eventually. Like, you buy things with this idea that, yeah, eventually it'll be thrown away, but does it necessarily have to be that way?
Right.
Or for most of human history, was it that way?
Right.
And this is kind of a more modern invention that everything is bought with the idea of disposability in mind.
That's right.
Well, this was great. This was
thank you.
fun.
We had fun.
Thank you.
Mike Garland, Director of the Monroe County Department of Environmental Services, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Gino.
And Nicole Fornoff?
You got it.
Got it. Okay. Waste Diversion Education Coordinator for the Monroe County Department of Environmental Services. Thank you for being here. This has been Connections. I'm Gino Finelli.
This program is a production of WXXI Public Radio. The views expressed do not necessarily represent those of this station, its staff, management, or underwriters. The broadcast is meant for the private use of our audience. Any rebroadcast or use in another medium without expressed written consent of WXXI is strictly prohibited. Connections with Evan Dawson is available as a podcast. Just click on the Connections link at WXXInews.org.